Finally, these new works critically re-examine the iconography of the era. Within the new Black Power historiography, one of the things I'm suggesting is that three major schools have emerged that specifically address the chronological roots of Black Power, and in doing so, force consideration of whether civil rights and Black Power are distinct struggles within the Black freedom struggle and more broadly post-war America. Maintaining the standard chronology of Black Power's classical period from 1965 to 1975, one school implicitly argues that Black Power represented a more militant phase of conventional civil rights struggle. Uhuru Williams, Robert Self, Matt Countryman, Winston Grady Willis, Christina Green, and Kent Germany, in case studies chronicling post-war Black political and urban activism, provide nuanced, carefully researched, and balanced accounts of Black Power within a broader sweep of the histories of New Haven, Oakland, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Durham, and New Orleans. These new urban histories have been important, for example, in positing Black Power as a movement that reshaped municipal politics in lasting but often unrecognized ways. The second school challenges the standard periodization of the Black Power era, pushing its origins back to the World War II era. Scholars such as Tim Tyson, myself, James Smethurst trace the roots of Black Power to the post-war period, an era usually considered fallow for African American radicalism. Moreover, their portraits of early Black Power activism chronicle the movement's interaction with civil rights struggles in the Deep South, urban activism in the North, and the international influences that stretch from Cuba to Africa and the larger Third World. In documenting Black Power's relationship to Cold War geopolitics, these scholars argue that the movement was shaped as much by radicalizing international currents as by local domestic needs and political economy. A third tendency is emphasized the chronological overlap between the civil rights Black Power eras, arguing that the two traditions were not mutually exclusive and that together they represent aspects of a broader Black freedom movement spanning from the 1930s to the 1980s. Nikhil Singh's Black as a Country provocatively referred to 20th century struggles for racial justice as a long civil rights era. Jacqueline Dowd Hall's 2005 essay, The Long Civil Rights Movement and the Political Uses of the Past, coined the term long civil rights movement and argued for an expansive definition of civil rights as a half-century-long struggle for racial, economic, and gender justice in American society. In two influential anthologies, Freedom North and Groundwork, Jean Theo Harris and Kamosi Woodard have chronicled how local movements for civil rights and Black Power alter more rigid and nationally based portraits of the two periods. My own two anthologies, The Black Power Movement and forthcoming Neighborhood Rebels, respectively document the broad scope of Black Power era politics and its connections to civil rights struggles and the movement's local character and evolution at the municipal and grassroots level. All of these perspectives apply what scholar Stephen F. Lawson has characterized as an interactive model of social movements to Black Power by recognizing the need to connect the local with the national, the social with the political. A group of suggestive new works collectively pushes the timeline back even further, arguing that Black Power's modern-day origins can be traced back to the 1930s and 40s, a period that I've characterized as the long Black Power movement. Far from collapsing chronological and conceptual distinctions between civil rights and Black Power, the long Black Power movement paradigm suggests that scholars need to consider the deep political, economic, and cultural roots that have given rise to the movement. For instance, historian Robert Self maintains that understanding Black Power's origins require plumbing the depths of post-war liberalism. Quote, as a product of liberalism and its failure, notes Self, Black Power represents a poignant effort to advance a political strategy beyond segregation. Quote, Black Power was a creative outgrowth of earlier efforts, not a radical and failed break from them, close quote. Self's efforts to make Black Power central to the development of post-war Black activism is laudable but needs to go further. Black Power's modern roots go beyond African American discontent with the unfulfilled promise of the New Deal and the burgeoning post-war American liberal state. Black Power's most important early 20th century manifestation predates the New Deal and took shape in the sprawling organizing apparatus mobilized by Marcus Garvey. The Universal Negro Improvement Association permeated every aspect of Black life in the United States, extending to parts of the Caribbean, Africa, and Europe. Remnants of Garveyism remained vital in pockets of the African American community long after the UNIA's demise as a force in national politics. Moreover, as Mary G. Rollinson's important study, Grassroots Garveyism, reveals, Garvey's influence burst outside of metropolitan centers and flowered in rural parts of the South, leaving a long-standing and powerful legacy of black nationalism, self-reliance, and political self-determination. Glenda Gilmore's Define Dixie reimagines the chronology and periodization of the Southern Civil Rights Movement through an examination of radical black and white Southern activists between 1919 and 1950. Quote, by giving the movement a 1950s start, asserts Gilmore, we discount the forces that generated and sustained human rights during the 1930s and 1940s and privilege its religious, middle class, and male roots. Gilmore's lengthening of the periodization of Southern civil rights activism implicitly challenges standard conceptions of black power by refuting facile stories of the civil rights era that eliminate, quote, connections among civil liberties, labor rights, and civil rights that liberals and radicals established during the Depression era. Quote, taking this narrow view, black power betrayed the movement of which it had always been part, and the cries from Watts for equal economic opportunity were anti-American. But in the 1930s and 1940s, as Nikhil Singh's sweeping intellectual history of the black freedom struggle, Black as a Country argues, aspects of Garvey's Pan-African movement shaped the anti-colonial activism of W.E.B. Du Bois and Paul Robeson. Amid the height of the Great Depression, the UNIA's defiant call for self-determination served as a guiding principle for a diffuse black nationalist landscape that featured small sectarian religious organizations such as the Nation of Islam. Paul Robeson's activism is especially crucial here. The characterization of Robeson as a leftist, while accurate, is incomplete. Robin Kelly, Penny Von Eschen, Kamosi Woodard, myself, and Ian Roxbury Smith and others paid particular attention to Robeson's revolutionary politics of class struggle and cultural identification with Africa. This cultural identification with Africa was expressed through Robeson's political organizing in the Council on African Affairs, public speaking tours in the United States and around the world, and his journal Freedom. As a political mentor to a generation of black radicals, including Lorraine Hansberry, Julian Mayfield, and Harry Belafonte, Robeson effectively served as a bridge between the new Negro nationalism of the 1920s, which imbued the Harlem Renaissance that Robeson participated in, and the freedom surges of the post-World War II era. By 1958, in spite of years of harassment by government authorities, Robeson retained a defiant optimism and extolled the virtue of Negro power in the cause of radical self-determination for 16 million black Americans. I want to discuss very briefly before moving on Kevin Gaines's American Africans in Ghana. Kevin Gaines's penetrating study, American Africans in Ghana, illustrates what black power meant to groups of African American activists whose stay in West Africa from 1957 to 1966 predated the term's popularity. Quote, the vision of an expansive, interconnected black world, observes Gaines, informed by traditions of black nationalism and radicalism and epitomized by Ghana, informed their assessments of the continuing struggles of Africans and African Americans. In Ghana, radical black activist intellectuals engaged in the difficult, ultimately successful, but nonetheless, unsuccessful rather, but nonetheless invigorating and inspiring practice of nation building in a newly independent African republic. Gaines offers compelling examples of the way in which the politics of self-determination and anti-colonialism that became a hallmark of black power politics thrived in post-war national and international arenas. This is a sweeping paper, so now I'm moving around a little bit chronologically. I want to discuss, when we think about the Black Panther Party, there's a whole field of Black Panther studies within the context of Black Power studies. I want to discuss a couple of works here. Some of the newest works include Jane Rhodes' very powerful Framing the Panthers. Black Panther studies are still undergoing an evolution.